Good evening, listeners. Today we are joined by a remarkable figure in the world of vintage posters and graphic arts. He's the president and principal auctioneer at Swan Galleries in New York and a passionate advocate for Czech graphic design. Please welcome Mr. Nicholas Lowry. Hello, Nicholas. Thank you for joining.
Tomáš, thank you for having me. I'm delighted that you asked me to be here.
What originally sparked your passion for vintage posters? Was there a specific moment when you realized this would become your life works?
Well, I grew up in a family that ran an antiquariat, an antiquarian bookstore here in New York City. And so I grew up surrounded by beautiful objects of art. My mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, my two aunts, everybody worked in the business, and everybody in the family had their own area of expertise. My mother was a specialist in modern first editions. My father was a specialist in autographs. My aunt was a specialist in medical books and maps, as was my grandmother. And so when I was in my late 20s, I went to work in the bookstore, and I really didn't want to do anything that everybody else in my family did. And it turned out that there was a room in the bookstore that was filled with posters that my grandfather had purchased in the 1920s and 30s, and nobody had been into the room ever since. And I went into the room, and 3 or 4 months later, I came out of the room. Everything in the room was cataloged, and I had learned a lot, and that is where my passion began, right there.
You spent several years living in Prague, working as a teacher, journalist. How did your time in Czech Republic shape your interest in posters and graphic designs?
Having grown up in a house filled with posters and art, one of the posters we had in my home growing up was an Alphonse Mucha poster for Zdenka Černý, the world's greatest Bohemian violoncellist. We also had a poster by Victor Oliva. And when I came to Prague, I was able to meet the curator at the Museum, and through him I was able to learn a lot more about Czech design. Also, I was in Prague in the year 1990, and in 1990 it was the big centennial exhibition at the Výstaviště. And at the Výstaviště they had a carnival, they had the magic fountain, but they also had a big exhibition that was put together of posters from Czech history. And that was the first thing. I saw that exhibition, and then I became friendly with the people at the and then I began to learn more and more. And then I was lucky enough to be able to meet some people who were selling posters. So I was able to buy many of them.
So in the 1990s, that was like the beginning of your collecting?
That was the first time I ever bought a poster. So the posters I grew up with, my parents already had. But for me, that was the very beginning of my collecting.
Do you still have it? Like your first poster?
I still have it. It was for some kind of celebration for a school. What would you call that? Every year they would have not a graduation party, but like a yearly party.
Prom, maybe?
Something like a prom, I think. That's exactly right. And it was a very, very beautiful, colorful poster, and it was fantastic. And I bought it, and I knew that I wanted to get more and more just like it.
When you're looking back at your career, what has been the biggest challenge you've had to overcome, and how did you manage it?
I think the biggest challenge I had to overcome was becoming independent from my parents. So like I said, they were both very prominent in the business, and both my parents are still alive. And my father is Czech. He was born in Prague in 1932. So right now he's 93 years old. Both of my parents were very prominent in the business, and the biggest challenge for me was to be able to step out of their shadow and to become also very prominent in the business by my own actions, not just by being their son.
What would you recommend to people that are wanting to be as independent as you, like come from the shadow of your parents and be like the new star of the family?
Well, I think that's a wonderful question, but I don't think I could ever answer it because I don't know how I did it. I think if I was able to tell you, I would also be able to become a teacher, and I could make a lot of money selling this plan to people. I didn't even have to try so hard. I found something that I loved, which was posters and graphic design. And once I found something that I loved, it was so easy for me to focus on it. I didn't have to worry, but I can be very competitive. So once I found something that I loved, I worked at it very hard, and I worked hard to become the best I could by doing it differently and better than everybody else. I don't think I could do this with anything that I wasn't passionate about. So I think the secret was passion and competition.
Okay, so that's your potion of becoming best and still having the passion for it.
Correct. It's a combination. The passion really made me want to be the best. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't even challenging. I loved it so much, I wanted to know everything about it. It's like if you pick up a book that you really love, you finish it very quickly. But if you pick up a book that you don't like, maybe you read a chapter, maybe 2 chapters, then you put the book down and then you forget about the book. But this was something that I really loved, and I was able to really put my entire heart into doing it.
There is one project called Identita.
Yes.
What drew you to that project, and what does it mean to you personally?
So Identita is a project that began right after the shutdown, right after the pandemic. And it was a project that originally was going to be 8 episodes of a television show for Česká televize, Češtině, and it was about the history of Czech graphic design. And it was narrated by my friend Aleš Najbrt, who's a very famous designer, very famous and a wonderful designer. And it was produced by other people who I knew. And the TV episodes were so popular, or the idea was so popular, that they decided to enlarge the project. So not just make it in Czech, in the Czech language for a Czech audience, but to make an international version in English, and they decided to make a documentary. And they came to me because I know a lot about Czech graphic design. Also, here in America, for almost 30 years now, I've been part of a television show called the Antiques Roadshow, which means I think I'm very good, being in front of a camera. And they really wanted me to help make the movie. And given my passion for all things Czech, given my passion for graphic design, I immediately agreed to do it. It was the most wonderful project. We spent about maybe a year and a half or 2 years making it. We traveled all over Czechia. We went to Bzenec, we went to Zlín, went to Brno, and we went somewhere in the forest. I don't even know where the forest was. And the result was a very lovely, very special movie, all about Czech graphic design, but also a little bit of my own personal story with my Czech background. And so, the word identita, identity in English, this was not just the identity of Czech graphic design, but it was also my own identity, my family history, and so on. And so now the existing project, which has been out for a little bit over a year now, very much is part of my own personal identity.
I just wanted to say, for you, as your thought about looking good in front of the camera, I think someone with your style is lovely to look at. You said you traveled some small cities. Which was your favorite memory from one of these?
Without any doubt, my favorite part of the entire filming was to go to Bzenec during the Vinny Oblast, the wine harvest festival.
Yeah.
And I was able to wear a kroj, and I was able to march in the parade, and I was able to drink a lot of wine. And as you know, I do love to put on interesting clothing. So wearing the kroj on a beautiful summer's day or late summer's day was absolutely fantastic. And I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Yeah, because like the krojes are really, that's one of the part of the graphics too. Yeah,
Yes.
like for sure. For the design is perfect. Yeah, so it's making sense.
Each town has its own design, its own kind of ornamentation, its own kind of fabric. And so it literally is an identity for the different people from the different villages.
If it's something you wanted to say to our listeners, you have a space right here.
I will say one more thing because you gave me the opportunity. I mentioned that in the movie, it's not just the identity of Czech graphic design, but also my own identity. And one of the large parts about my Czech heritage is the business that my grandmother and her brother ran from 1906 until 1938. My family is Jewish, so when my family had to leave Czechoslovakia, the Germans took over this business. And it's a very famous company. It's a company that still exists today and still exists throughout Czechia now. And it's a company called Primeros. I'm very proud of this business. I'm very proud of the company. My family doesn't own it anymore, but it's a wonderful company. They also used contemporary graphic designers to redesign the logo and the packaging. So now the packaging is among the best condom packaging in the world. And the company really caters to the LGBTQ plus community, which is something I'm also very proud of. And I know that my grandmother would be very proud of also.